Hi everyone, Delicia Lacon here, aka Deli the Explorer, your resident hypea, grad school fairy godmother, checking in with everyone for a new podcast episode. It's been a minute, it's been a while, and I'm here to reset the stage, reset the intention of this podcast. Yes, it's called College and Career Coffee Chats, and I ask all my guests to bring coffee or tea or anything they want to cheers with because I love coffee and tea and have all the beverages all the time. I have seltzer and water. So we started back in 2020, December 22, 2020, and it's been a fun ride. It's been 2 years since the podcast, starting the third year, and I've learned a lot. And I'm still really excited to create interview spaces to connect with people about the podcast. It started off as a very technical, how do you write a resume? How do you prepare for an interview? How do you connect with people in higher education and professionals to help you on the college campus? We were during the global panini at the time, so it was very geared towards what was happening in real time during the pandemic for students. And now that we're in the real world again, not necessarily out of a pandemic. We're still very much in a global pandemic, but moving through it in a different way. So I think it's important to name that and be transparent with that evolution comes the evolution of this podcast. And if you're new around here, my name is Delicia Lacon. I'm first generation Paraguayan American, aka Amerihuaya. My family's from Paraguay. I grew up in New Jersey, Jersey girl forever. And currently home is Florida. And but right now I'm a grad student at NYU, New York University, in a very interdisciplinary program that I really enjoy and love, and we'll be talking more about on the podcast as well as on social media. So make sure you follow me at Deli the Explorer on Instagram and TikTok. I'll be sharing my journey and showing up authentically as a first generation grad student in New York City at NYU. So make sure you tune into those spaces if that's something that resonates with you. And day-to-day job, I work as a CEO of Deli Academy, which is career mentoring, career coaching, career support for first generation Latino, Latina, Latine, Latinx students, but as well as all individuals, not only Latino students. So make sure you check out my website if you need support in any of those areas, what resonates with you. And I want to reset the container of this podcast space and the community that we're going to continue to build here. Because I think as I shift and transition in my career, it's important to share that with the community who listens on the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see kind of what I'll be doing as the intro for this. And one of those things that I really want to incorporate, and a disclaimer before I do that is I'm not a trained astrologer or trained divination medicine woman. I am simply a human existing in this space and reconnecting with maybe ancestral wisdom and truths that connect with me. And one of those divination tools um, are oracle decks. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the modern spiritual Latina oracle. I'll post a picture online so people can see. And it's created by Jasmine Alejandres Prasad. She is Esoteric Esa on social media. So make sure you follow her and get real astrologer training and astrologer divination from her. And I'll drop the Bis Bruja, Juliet Diaz. So if you follow me on social media, you've seen that I've posted this book, The Altar Within, a radical devotional guide to liberate the divine self by Juliet Diaz. I'll also link this information in the bio, and it's a journey to self-discovery, self-divination, self-care, self-worship. And she on the back says she remembered who she was, and without mercy, she destroyed everything that ever made her feel like she wasn't whole. So I think it's backwards on the recording, but I'll post this on the gram and everywhere so you can see what I'm talking about. And part of that journey is connecting with divination tools to connect with. If you know me personally offline, you know that I'm really into these things like the moon, the stars, astrology, spirituality, divination, um, oracle decks, tarot. It's something that I haven't shared online because I'm not a trained person in these spaces. I'm an academic scholar, academic career coach. So I spend time in the academic spaces in research and archives. So those are I'm in education, educator, higher education. Those are the spaces through which I navigate. But as a whole human that we exist in this world, we have divination tools that we like that support me on my journey. So I want to share that on the podcast as a space for you to explore. If it's something you're interested in, great. If not, leave the rest, skip this part. I will put in the timestamps for you to skip it if it's not something you're interested in. And don't worry, I will be talking about real nitty-gritty things. And my guests will also be talking about their journey and their nitty-gritty things as well. But because this has helped me on my journey, I want to share it with you all. So I'm just gonna shuffle it really quickly. I shuffled it a little bit before the call or the recording, so it's not taking forever. And like I said, I use this as my own tool. I don't, um, I'm not someone who like reads for people. Like this is for me. But I want to set the intention for the podcast together in community with you, listening, watching, wherever you're watching or listening on all the podcast streams. And I want to set the intention for this new season of the podcast and setting the stage for a new energy, a new space. Recording today, February 5th, 2023, which is a full moon in Leo, which is pretty, I think, divinely guided to show up in this space because I think is something that I want to bring forth when I bring in conversation people. And I'll explain what that looks like in the evolution of the podcast. So, what came up is very, I think, divine timing. It says cosmic sisterhood, finding spiritual community, patterns, sisterhood, or you can read it as brotherhood or communityhood, taking out gender, intersectional feminism, starseed lineage, and the number 22. Which, if you've been around these internet streets with me, you know I love the number 4. My birthday's October 4th. I love numerology. I love the numbers. I love even numbers. I've always talked about this in my spaces with students and people in general. So I'm going to show the card, and I think this is very powerful. So I want to take a moment and like let that sink in. And I'll show you a key. So what are we unlocking? There's a heart on the key. There's a web, una red, if you speak Spanish, a web, or in Paraguay, the ñanduti is a thread that threads a beautiful embroidery for clothing and placemats and pillowcases. And ñanduti means spider web, and it connects people, la red, the community, the net. And it's pretty powerful that it came up here. So if you're watching this on YouTube, this is what it looks like. And I'll post it on the gram, on the feed, if you're listening on the podcast, so you can see what it looks like. I'm a very visual person, so that's why I'm doing audio and video. So that's powerful for this intention setting of this podcast evolution. So I'm going to set it here. It'll guide us through the call and through the conversation that I want to share with you. Like I said, this is the 3rd year that we're entering the podcast, and I have made a couple changes. Number 1 is we are moving from seasons to just episodes. I'll just release the numbers, whatever we're at, and it'll keep going. But it will follow the schedule of school because I'm in school. So I have to follow an academic schedule to keep me in check, to keep my assignments in check. Like I mentioned, I'm in grad school at NYU, so I'm following an academic schedule. So in each break, like winter, summer, I'll record and then release the episodes while I'm in session, classes in session, or the semesters are in session. So we are in the spring semester, spring 2023, and this is my first episode for this spring season. And I'll be releasing throughout the weeks the new podcast episodes, which we have amazing guests. I'm so excited for y'all to hear them. They're very divine alignment And like the card says, cosmic sisterhood or cosmic community, cosmic brotherhood. You ascribe the gender that connects to you, um, or cosmic theyhood to be more inclusive. So you ascribe whatever connects to you individually. And like I said at the beginning, take what resonates with you, leave the rest. So that's the first change from seasons to regular episodes. The second change is it'll be in conjunction with academic schedule. And the third thing I want to talk about is transparency. I'm looking to change the name of the podcast as the evolution is. I think college and career coffee chats sound very like technical, like you're going to hear. This is not a how-to podcast. This is not about me telling you how to live your life. This is not about how you, this is the top 3 tips you need to be successful as a student. No, this is more of me sharing people's stories, providing a platform for people to share their journey, and you take what resonates with you and leave the rest. It's not going to be everything for everyone. Maybe parts of an episode resonate, parts don't. And I'm never going to tell a student or an individual that connects with me what to do. I'm going to lay out my journey. I'm going to lay out my stories. I'm going to lay out best practices. I'm going to lay out other people's stories. And then you, as the student, as the individual listening, need to take that information and find discernment within yourself and what works for you. This is a podcast, an exercise in discernment. Maybe that should be the name of the podcast. Discern with Deli the Explorer. Ooh, I like the sound of that. But we'll see. We'll see. Stay tuned. And if you have any ideas for a new name of the podcast, like let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram at Deli the Explorer. Let's chat about it. So that's the framework. And I want to touch base like what was the first semester of grad school? I think I started off really strong, really excited. And then within 10 days, my world was rocked. My grandmother passed away, my paternal grandmother. She lived in Paraguay. So it was really hard to be in grad school and not be able to go to Paraguay because I just started grad school. I was just moving from Florida to New York City. So I made the choice to go home, which was Florida, to spend time with family, even though my parents were in Paraguay, laying her to rest. I think that was really hard. Um, I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but grief is really hard, especially when you're alone in the city. Even though I have family in New Jersey, family in the city, um, my day to day is spent with myself, going to class, going to my routine, doing my things. Um, and I think it was really tough to move to a new city, even though I love New York and I've been here a billion times. Living here is very, very different. Um, so I think it was tough to start this new journey of grad school and navigate grief and navigate that emotional turmoil and pain. So I decided to go home for a couple of weeks. Thankfully, professors were very accommodating and very kind and allowed me to have an extension on readings, an extension on assignments, and hand in things maybe a couple of days after they were due because it was very sudden and very like she was older, but it was still sudden. Um, So this episode is about setting the intention for the new year of this podcast, talking about grief and pain and how we can hold both, holding grief in that moment, plus joy and excitement that I was on this new journey of my grad school experience and my academic scholar journey. Because if you're new around here, you know that I'm a very academic nerd. I love to read. I love to research. I love to be in archives. I spend a lot of time reading about history, historical memory, collective memory, memory studies is my area, cultural studies with Paraguay. If you want to learn more about it, make sure you follow Memoria Histórica Paraguay on Instagram. I'm going to be sharing that journey there to keep it separate so it doesn't confuse people because it's a very academic space where I navigate. So I could hold both. And I want you to, if you're listening or watching, to understand that you can also hold both. You can also hold grief and pain and joy and solitude and community. And grief doesn't go away. I lost my grandfather in 2015, someone I was very close to, and I still feel that grief sometimes. It's going to be almost 10 years. Um, so I want you to enjoy that. And I'm really excited to be a part of this book launch called Microjoys. Let me pull up her exact name because I always forget her exact name. Her exact name is Cyndie Spiegel. She's an author, speaker, and writer, and I'm on her launch team for Microjoys, her book, Microjoys, Finding Hope, especially when life is not okay. And that's just like a magical book that's about to come out. And I'm really excited to get an advanced copy and an advance read of it so I can be a part of the launch journey. But that's been something that I've been resonating with, not only since my grandmother passed away in the fall, but since my grandfather passed away, which was the biggest, I think, loss in that moment for me. I've been on this quest since 2015 of finding those micro joys. And I think it accelerated the process of me living my authentic truth. And I've always done that in private spaces with family, friends, community, college. But now I want to show up online for anyone that this could resonate with. Um, and it's not like a cliche authentic, like, let me be my truth and live my authentic self, blah, 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 in like this romanticized way. No, it's in a truthful way that we can exist in both grief, pain, and also joy and fun. And that's okay. And it's okay to not be okay sometimes. So that's what I want to talk about. That's what I talk about with my students all the time. That's what I talk about in workshops. But I think I want to share more online. Not I think, I know. I want to share more with the online community of this podcast, YouTube, and TikTok fans and friends, not fans, friends, TikTok friends, because that's where I get most engagement. So that's what I wanted to talk through and also um, share that it's important to live your truth in your honesty and be true to your desires and true to your wants and your aspirations. And it may not make sense to other people, but if you can find individuals who connect with you and motivate you and push you to make that happen, be in more community with those kind of people. And if you can't find them, like, send me a DM and let's chat, and I can support you in finding that community of what that could look like, because there are pockets of communities that will resonate with you. I know for a fact. You're not alone. You're not unique. You're unique, but your desires are not standalone and can connect with other people. And you're not alone. That's the whole point of creating a community on the podcast and in these spaces, is to remind individuals that you're not alone in this journey of life, whatever this looks like. And you get to define that for yourself, and find that discernment for yourself and use the tools at your disposal. If it's community, if it's college, if it's oracle decks, if it's tarot, if it's like birth chart readings, if it's sports, if it's fitness, whatever that community is for you, be authentic to that. And if that curiosity is calling you, go for it. That follow your bliss moment is what you need to tap into. And there's a beautiful quote that I came across here in preparation for today. And I think it's perfect for this to set the tone of this podcast release. It is, the most creative act is the act of creating yourself. How beautiful is that? And there's a quote by Lao Tzu, philosopher. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Like, how powerful is that? So, this podcast, I hope, helps you unravel who you are, live in that truth, follow that honesty, follow that curiosity, follow that desire, follow that bliss. The most creative act is the act of creating yourself. Like, you get to create who you are, what you want, what you do. Knowing others is intelligence, but knowing yourself is true wisdom. Like, how, like, I'm gonna let that land for a moment. Like, I'm probably gonna have to journal and process that a little bit more because that's powerful. And journaling is another tool. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, don't do it. Like find what works for you. If creating Pinterest boards works and not, if it doesn't work, don't do it. Like really figure out what works for you. Discernment. Discernment. That's the power. So I think I'm really excited. Not I think. I know I'm really excited for this podcast to continue the evolution of this podcast. I have some in-person recordings coming out. We get a studio at NYU, so I'm going to use it. My talk show host era is coming. Stay tuned for all of that fun stuff. We have really amazing guests coming. They've already come. I've already recorded. I just need to release the episodes. So thank you for hanging out with me on this Sunday in this beautiful moment of creating ourselves, creating yourself. Um, if you have any feedback, please send me a message or an email. I'll link all the information in the comment section. If you want to be a guest on this podcast to share your journey, if something resonated with you and you want to talk about it, let's talk. Like, this is not a gatekeeper's podcast. I am not going to gatekeep whoever wants to share their story. Sure, I interview first generation, typically underrepresented folks, because that's who I want to center in this podcast. So if you have a cool story to share, DM me. Let's set up a call. Let's talk it through what you want to say and let's hit record. And if you're in the New York City, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area and you want to come and record in person, let's make it happen. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for riding with me. And let's chat. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, like, share, comment, do all the things. Until the next one, my friends. Cheers with some cafecito. Or we can do the podcast in Espanol también. And maybe Portuguese. Practice my Portuguese. We'll see. Have a good one, my friends. Adios.